Can everyone hear me okay? Also in the back? Yeah, thumbs up. Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Very excited to be here. I want to talk to you over the next 20-25 minutes about mobility budget and why I personally think that you should invest into the mobility of your employees. And there are three things where I took the liberty to highlight them in red because they're important and are serving as our quick and dirty agenda for today. It's about you who want to be successful in getting your employees, quickly, effortlessly from A to B. So let's talk about what the industry and what the trends have been looking like that are basically serving you as your operating model. The second one is about investing. Whenever you invest into something, there's something to be gained, right? So we want to talk about what is there to be gained by you if you invest into the employees' mobility. And the third one is employees' mobility, not just on the business travel side, but also on the personal and commuting side. And I want to walk you through why I think and we think it's important for all of us to start looking into employees' mobility more holistically. My name is Fabio. I'm leading the strategy and operations department within FreeNow for Business. And I've come here today with a large group of people of FreeNow trying to talk to you about why we think ground transportation needs to be revamped and that we want to offer you more, let's say, smarter ways and making smarter mobility decisions with your employees, helping your users move more freely throughout the cities and helping cities to thrive. By show of hands, how did you get here today? By cab? Who came here by cab? Actually me. Yeah, most of us. Public transport? All right. Anyone that's been using like a shared car over the last, let's say, week? No? Still quite new? All right, you'll hear more about that later on. No worries about it. Now, probably, I'm sorry about the slides, not sure what has been happening here. Just a second, can you double check that? All right, never mind. I'll just talk over it and you just ignore the slides completely. There's been a mix-up in the tech. Anyways, I probably don't have to tell you that 27% of Europeans' greenhouse gas emissions are down to transportation. For the ones of you who has read Bill Gates' book on how to avoid a climate disaster, he talks about this magic number of 51. 51 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions are being emitted every year. If we now think about the fact that 27% of that is coming from transportation, there's something that needs to be done. And we think about the fact that in 2050, there'll be 10 billion people living on this planet, most of them in urban areas, looking for mobility to go grocery shopping, go into meetings, and whatever have you. We need to find ways to make this more accessible for everyone. The lady on the right-hand side, you're probably all aware of. This is Angie, Angela Merkel, who did step down as the chancellor from Germany. And after 16 years in power, she basically left her, let's say, party in shreds. And last Sunday, we had the election in Germany, right? This picture was taken at the IAA in Munich just 2 weeks ago. On Sunday, her party got a beating in the election. And while I was preparing this speech here, I was actually listening to the broadcast of the election, and there were tons of buzzwords somehow related to mobility that I picked up on. So politicians were talking about how e-mobility needs to be more subsidized, how we need to reduce the number of company cars, they're expensive and just standing on the side of the road. They talked about how we need to create a European railway system so that countries help employees and users to move more freely throughout Europe. We talk about emission-free after 2030, so that every car that's going to be sold after 2030 should be emission-free. There are cities that are already putting a ban on cars. There were debates about how do we make sure that with all these bans and all these restrictions, we still leave users with the freedom to move however they like. In Germany, the big topic is about speeding limits on the Autobahn. There are tax brackets. In London, just recently, fuel shortages. And all of this stuff happening while we're trying to make mobility more accessible and more affordable for everyone. So I was listening to all of this and thinking, wait, we as a company, as Free Now, and you as travel managers, mobility managers, fleet managers, people who are participating in this sphere, we are in the perfect sweet spot to change that, right? Because we are basically having an impact on this 27% of transport that is, bothering our environment these days. When you look at Free Now, maybe some of you don't know us yet. Maybe the ones from Ireland know us under the name of Halo. The Germans will know us under the name of My Taxi. The French ones here under the name of Captain and Chauffeur Privé. Did I miss anyone? Romania, Clever. In Greece, we're called Beat. I think you see where I'm getting at. Like, we had a lot of rebrandings over the last couple of years, but now we're this one brand, Free Now, that is basically offering you one app, and by this one app, you're able to make use of any kind of ground transportation that is nearby. And I was thinking, what if we now, all of us here, were able to tap into these 27 million passengers a year and help them make smarter mobility decisions? If we were to use our driver base, these 236,000 drivers, and help them improve their, let's say, level that they're operating on and move from a combustion engine car over to an electric car. If we were to help any one of our 30,000 customers in Europe and help them make smart mobility decisions by investing into greener mobility and travel policies. And if we did that across 10 countries, over 100 cities, and make use of this multimodal approach, meaning not just providing you with a taxi when you need it, or with a PHV when you need it, but also getting you an e-scooter, an e-bike, a shared car, whatever it is that gets you around. If we got this right, then we were also able to achieve our green pledge, which means being carbon neutral by 2030. So we looked into what are the trending elements of corporate mobility that you guys are also interested in here, and how do we make kind of sense of that. And I brought 4 buzzwords that I want to explain to you. The first one is about more choice. When I was a consultant at EY, so Ernst & Young, 4 or 5 years ago, the first day into the door, they offered me a company car. I was like, I'm living in the center of Hamburg. I don't need a company car. It actually just bothers me to be looking after a car. What else do you have for me? They're like, well, we have a public transport ticket for you. It's like you send me on client sites from Mondays to Thursdays. I barely spend any time in Hamburg. I can't leverage a Hamburg public transportation ticket. It's like, do you have anything else in between? No, we don't. And I think this is something that many of our customers are also struggling with, to bridge the gap between company car and public transport, because there's little service and support that is happening in between. The second one is more safety. And actually, this morning we had a very interesting and inspiring conversations with a potential client of ours. And she said, people are moving away from this terminology of duty of care to duty to care. And I think it's interesting because service providers and suppliers, are offering masks, are offering, hand sanitizers, are offering partition screens to keep their users safe. You, on the travel management side, you have actually put a ban on mobility over the last year and a half. That means you put the health and the safety of your employees above the success of the company, which is huge. The third one is flexibility, not just with regards to the mode of transportation, but also with regards to how you can modify your trip, how you can make sure that if it starts raining, you're shifting to a different mode of transportation. And the last one is about responsibility, and I think that's an important one, where we need to help users move more effortlessly and green throughout the cities. And when we think about flexibility and choice, we come to think about on-demand. On-demand is everywhere. On-demand TV show brought to you by Netflix. On-demand dating brought to you by Tinder. On-demand transport brought to you by Free Now. And you can see people moving away from actually ownership, from owning a car and possessing a car, over to using a car and using mobility. And with this sharing model, we're able to help your employees move more sustainably through the cities. We can help you analyze and understand how your employees are moving through the cities, what mode of transportation they use, when they're using it, why they're using it, how they're using it, and using all this data and crafting your travel policies are resulting in ways for your employees to save time and increase their happiness factor. So looking after the trends, the question is obviously, what kind of impact do these trends have on your business? And I brought 4 additional stats for you. The first one is that 46% of travel managers actually say that their number one pain point is sustainability. How to get my transportation programs greener. So if you look to your left, if you look to the right, odds are that one of you guys is having struggles in finding ways to make your policies more green. The second one is about the fact that 8 out of 10 companies are already integrating travelers' well-being into their company policies. We have understood that in a world where after Corona and with remote work, we need to invest more into the employees. We need to make them happy. We need to present ourselves as attractive employers so that talents are actually willing to work for us. Because without good talent, there's no way for us to create a sustainable business. The next one is that mobility is already ranking among the top 5 categories when it comes to employees' benefits. It's not just about salary anymore or maybe getting some food at your office. No, it's about having the employer care about you as an employee and looking at the fact that mobility is so important for us in our day-to-day lives, not just for business or commute, but also for our private lives. It's expected by employees that their employers start caring about that too. And the last one, and to me the most shocking one, is that 4 out of 5 commuters actually hate their commute. When you think about the fact that on average a day 60 minutes are spent on your commute, it's actually our duty to make sure that we are helping our employees at least try to enjoy this 1 hour if they're getting to the office and when they're getting to the office. So the question is, what can we do with all these stats? And something that we worked on during Corona was what we now call the mobility budget. Now imagine, our revenues were down 90%. No one in Europe was traveling, neither for business nor for leisure. And we knew that the world would look differently after Corona. And the stats that I just presented you are, basically evidence to show you that, yes, the world of business travel, the world of mobility has changed. And we feel that with mobility budget, we're able to tap into that space. Now, what is it? It's actually quite simple. What we look at when we say mobility budget is we say, why don't you allocate a certain monetary value to every single one of your employees so that they don't need to be stuck on using one mode of transportation, but can spend this money on any kind of transportation that they need. On the employee side, they then take their app, they look at their screen, and they can see every single mode of transportation that is nearby, whether it is an e-scooter, a shared car, a taxi, public transport, an e-moped, an e-bike, whatever mode of transportation they feel is getting them to the right place at the right time in the most convenient manner possible. This is what you can, as an employee, then see on the app. And let's say I want to go to the movies and I take a shared car. I'll just spend it with a mobility budget that I'm provided by my employer. And it's just been reduced from the overall budget. And in the end, all of this information is fed back to the company, to you guys, so that you can make the right payroll, tax, and you name it, efforts. And there are multiple use cases that we can work with when we talk about mobility budget. The first one is my favorite. It's all about, this one here. It's all about employees' well-being, right? Making sure your employees are happy. And when we think about benefit programs such as the mobility budget, we know that this is boosting motivation by over 44%, right? Attracting the right employees, retaining them, motivating them, developing them, we need to invest into their well-being, and this is definitely a vehicle to do so. The second one is about company cars. In Germany, there are 5 million company cars on the street. 96% of the time, they're just standing still on the side of the road. So Instead of providing all of your sales reps with, I don't know, a Volvo and spending, I don't know, 500 euros a month on that, why not invest the same amount of money, these 500 euros a month, on any mode of transportation, right? On a mobility budget that the employee can then choose how they would like to be using it. And the last one is around sustainability efforts. All of us have our sustainability KPIs that we need to look after. We have our green pledge. We want to be carbon neutral by 2030. Many of you have programs in place with KPIs that you need to look after. So the mobility budget is a way for you to get there, because looking at the users that we have already that are making use of mobility budget, we can see that 70% of them are on a weekly basis using a mix of different transport options. So it's not just being committed to your car. No, it's mixing different transport options. Going to the office using a shared car. Going by an e-scooter to grab some drinks with a couple of friends afterwards. Then you're drunk, and hence you need a cab to go home. Right? Everything in one app, everything paid by your employer. So, in a nutshell, there are 5 takeaways in my opinion. The first one is that we know that mobility is more important than ever before. We all are used to not traveling, and all of us are aching for, connecting to people in real life like we're doing today. So we need to take the mobility concerns of our employees seriously and think about ways to support them, not just on business travel, but also on private and commuting terms. The second one is that green mobility is key for a successful travel policy going forward. Understanding the vehicles, the ideas, the efforts that we need to put into place to make our travel policies greener, for example, using such a mobility budget, are key to actually being successful over the next years. The third one is about micromobility. Our employees, your employees, are using these modes of transportation already. So we need to find ways to get on board and getting the shared cars or e-mopeds or bike schemes onto the travel policies to actually meet our employees halfway. The fourth one is about flexible mobility options and making sure that we don't just, tell our employees choose a company car or choose a public transportation ticket, but we don't offer you anything between. Let's think about how we can actually bridge the gap between the two extremes here. And the last one is that, to me, to our knowledge, mobility budget is one of the ways that you can actually invest back into employees and making them be more mobile. So this is my last slide. There's a QR code that brings you to a study that we did on how mobility is currently being reshaped. You can take a picture, download the brochure. If you feel there is something interesting about sustainable mobility, mobility budget, multi-mobility options, getting your employees safely from A to B, feel free to talk to us at BTSB 110. It's the stand right across the hall from here. And I'll leave it here because the next slide only says thank you. So, thank you.